Moving on to 4.1, you have for your information the response to the email we sent to the town of Yarmouth Parade of Lights. So I haven't talked to the mayor yet about that, but I will be very shortly. Moving on to 5, public hearing. Transient vendor bylaw T-088-09, second reading. So wishes of council on that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve transit vendor bylaw T-088-09.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to number 6, budget information. Greg, did you want the floor for that, or did you for questions, or no? Okay, you. So, Greg is in the, if there's any questions of him on the budget. If not, what's the wishes of council?
Are you waiting for me to respond? That was not information, that was information for council on correspondence from the province.
Yeah, the first two, 611 and 612, are correspondence from the province with respect to uniform assessment for this year, as well as our municipal contributions to various things such as corrections and roads. So you have that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see my whole screen. I thought I was jumping ahead of myself. So you have that information in front of you. We'll move on to 6.2. Council, go ahead.
Mr. Warden, would it be possible for the CAO or Mr. Shea maybe just to quickly brief the audience on some of the highlights of some of those documents, a few figures, so that they can, and we're also on camera so that people can more ably participate, the public, and understand the proceedings and the process here tonight.
Well, I can just brief you very quickly on the correspondence from the province in terms of some of the financial numbers they provide to us, because they do obviously have an impact on our overall budget. There's a number of areas where we're impacted, either in costs that are downloaded to us or in equalization or other funding that's provided to us. Some of the highlights are the education amount, which is a sum in excess of $2 million, which is delivered to us and set by the Education Act. There's a road charge to us that has increased this year by 1.5% to a little over $5,000 a kilometer that impacts us. We have a few kilometers of roads in the municipality that are provincial roads. Corrections is another area that we have to make a contribution to the government to. So there's several of these areas that they don't highlight in this correspondence specifically what the amounts are. Sometimes they just refer to previous years. For example, the equalization grant has been frozen at last year's levels. Grants in lieu of taxes and fire protection are another revenue area for municipalities if we have provincial assets in our jurisdiction that belong to the province, and those amounts too are stayed for the amounts that were provided to us in the previous fiscal year 14-15. So it really is just a short amount of correspondence just to highlight some of the things that we can expect when we're doing our budgeting.
That's sufficient, Councillor? Thank you. Okay, thanks, Greg. So we'll move on to 6.2, review and approval of operating budget for 2015-16.
So I can provide this to you. This is the draft operating budget prepared by staff for, to deliver to you, the council of the municipality for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2016. I'll read to you the highlights of the budget document, starting in the revenue section. Total revenues from assessable property is $8,749,034. Revenue from special assessments is $262,981. Business property revenue is $203,454. And deed transfer tax and other revenues is estimated to be $240,000. So total tax revenues would be $9,455,469. Grants in lieu of taxes from federal and provincial governments, $32,145. Services to other governments, $470,008. Other revenues from own sources, $672,405. Unconditional transfers from other governments. This includes the equalization grant that's been frozen for this year. The total is $153,242. The equalization portion of that is $129,875. The estimates for the gas tax transfer program proceeds, which is conditional transfers from other governments, is $460,000. And transfers from other funds is budgeted to be $274,373. So total non-tax revenues are estimated to be $2,070,173. And total revenues overall are $11,525,642. On the expenditure side, general government services, legislative is $214,281. General administration, $902,238. Financial management, $50,000. Taxation, tax reductions and PVSC, $288,651. Other general government services, which includes your grants to organizations, is $232,793. Protective services, RCMP, $1,070,684. Fire protection, including capital grants to fire departments, is $1,085,559. Emergency Measures Organization, $22,426. Other protective, essentially building inspection and development activities, $263,173. Animal and pest control, $29,745. Transportation, which includes roads, airport, and roads work on municipally owned roads, is $431,737. Our contribution to airports in this section is $315,700. It should be noted. Streetlights, $297,700. Public Works, $400,503. Environmental health services, which include sewers, waste check, landfill tipping fees, recycling fees, and garbage collection, is $1,025,585. Public health and welfare, which includes our shares of the deficits of the medical clinics, senior citizen housing, and doctor recruitment, $245,664. District Planning Commission, $72,800. Industrial parks and activities, which includes Industrial Commission and the Hebron Business Park, $136,765. Other environmental development services, $249,661. Recreation, $785,467. Culture and recreation facilities, $1,000. So in fiscal services, there's interest on long-term debt, $152,031. Principal payments on long-term debt, $142,500. Transfers to own reserves, funds, and agencies, $1,031,339. And conditional transfers to other governments, $2,371,561. And I'll note that the lion's share of that is the appropriation to the district school board, which is $2,020,856. There's a contingency for unforeseen items at $20,000. So the total expenses budgeted for the year are $11,523,862, which will leave us a very tiny surplus of $1,780.
Thank you, Greg. Any further questions of Greg? Counselor?
Yes, I'll move the adoption of the operating budget, and like to thank staff as well as my fellow councillors for all of the hard work on the document and getting us to this point.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded. Hearing no further discussion. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll go back to Greg. Under protective services, I noticed that under the protective services, it's item 6225, DNA costs, 45, and it jumps to 7,000. What is their reasoning, or do they?
They don't provide a reason. They just tell you prepare for a 50% increase, or doubling, almost a doubling of the costs, actually. And the RCMP as well is under contract, yet they advise us to prepare for a 2% increase.
For a 2% increase?
Yeah, in RCMP. So those things are some of the things that we don't get the details much of. Same as correctional in that same area.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all just numbers that are delivered to us by provincial authorities.
Yeah.
I think I would estimate that they're probably, like all government levels today, they're probably trying to do cost recovery a lot more and a lot better than they used to, and they're probably transferring some of their actual costs down to the municipal units.
That's all at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this question is through you to the CAO. District School Board appropriation on conditional transfers to other governments, $2,020,856. Where exactly does that money go? Does that money go towards the operating of our own Tri-County Regional School Board? Or does that go to the provincial? And I don't know if you have the answer to this question.
Those funds are transferred to the district school board, the local district board.
The local district board.
We're mandated to collect it on their behalf. They provide us with the rate, and we apply that against our taxable assessment, and we're actually, it's based on uniform assessment.
Okay.
So we collect that amount and hand it over in 12 equal payments.
So this obviously went up, by the looks of it, I guess Greg could answer this question, by CPI this year, correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm just sort of disappointed that we have to collect this money, and it's such a large part of our budget, but yet we have no say on things like school closures and stuff. And maybe I'm going to comment on that a little bit later.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Chairman, point of order. Can someone read back the motion?
Let's to approve the budget.
Is this to approve the budget, or is this to approve the setting the tax rate? The operating budget. All right, thank you.
Leading, your mic is on. Did you want to speak?
If I could,
Okay.
and I guess it would be a good opportunity, Mr. Warden, when Greg went through the budget, when we came to the streetlights, it's $297,700. Just that for the general public to acknowledge that the municipality is moving forward with moving into the LED streetlights, and that is going to be something that will hopefully benefit the municipality with a cheaper rate. Because $300,000 a year for streetlights in our municipality is, when we compare it to some of our other expenditures and so on, is quite a sum of money and so on. And I think we can reap the benefits, Greg, over what, over the next 3 years, would it be, to?
Well, once we get them all transitioned to LED, the payback is probably longer than that. It's probably close to 5 to 7 years, but I mean, in the long run, it's well worth the investment because the savings are substantial. Our light
the
bill
long
will
term,
reduce from $25,000 a month to probably, I'm a little rusty because I haven't looked at that project. That filed in quite a while, but it'll probably go down to maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Yeah, which would be a big saving to the municipality in the long term.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that forward, Mr. Chair, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. You have before you the 6 volunteer fire departments fire reports and their rates. Does someone want to move the acceptance of those? Oh, I'm sorry.
I wonder if I should read the, while we're doing that, there's 2 components besides the fire rate. I wonder if I should read in the residential resource and commercial rates for the year. We haven't
Okay.
articulated the actual rate per 100 of assessment with this budget.
Like, since it's a televised meeting, I guess, sure. The more
Okay.
information, the better.
So, so with this budget, we were able to leave all of the taxation rates unchanged for this year. So on the property side, the residential and the resource will each be left at $1.16 per 100 of assessment. The commercial rate will be $2.15 per 100 of assessment. The sewer rate remains unchanged as well. It is a flat rate per unit equivalent of $328.65 per year, or $82.16 a quarter. And the fire rates, if I can, I'll just read down the fire rates. Fire rates by district: F1 are 11 cents, F2 14 cents, F3 16 cents, F4 17 cents, F5 13 cents, F6 8 cents, and F7 is 11 cents.
Thank you, Greg. Any more questions of Greg before you move on the fire rates? Counselor?
Right, I'll move that we set the municipal tax rates at $1.16 per $100 of assessment for residential and resource, and $2.15 per $100 of assessment for the commercial rate for the 2015-16 fiscal.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Carrying on to the fire rates.
I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth set the fire rates at the rates circulated or discussed this evening by Mr. Shea.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. 6.4, approval of capital budget and capital investment plan. Greg, you got the floor again.
Looking at this agenda, I guess we're a little bit out of order on approval of some of the rates, but I guess the important thing is that they get done. So the capital investment plan was discussed and presented to council some time ago, and it is really part and parcel of the operating budget. I'm not sure here what to articulate to you at this meeting. Our capital investment plan for 15-16 includes in excess of $4 million of our share of the cost of a number of capital projects that have been identified as priorities for the municipality. And that's funded in a number of different ways, typically through our capital reserves, our operating reserves, and our gas tax funds. You're all familiar with the capital investment plan, so I don't know if there's any further I can add unless there's questions from the capital investment plan.
Any further discussion? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the approval of the capital budget and capital investment plan as presented.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion, Counselor?
Yes, I think the capital investment plan has a number of projects I'm in favor of. In fact, all in favor of, with the exception of the new municipal works building. And again, there's a dollar figure in that document, and there's too much uncertainty around that. And again, so I won't be able to vote in the affirmative for the plan. I have some other priorities around capital. So just wanted to let you know, for those reasons, I won't be voting in favor of the capital plan.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Noted. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. And we've already done 6.7. So, moving on to new business. 7.1. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss the sewer? Yes. Yep. Going back to 6.5, approval of sewer rates for 2015-16 for Hebron, Dayton, Port Maitland, South Ohio, and Arcadia. Greg?
So yeah, sorry about that, we were a little bit out of order, but I
My
did mention, I mentioned earlier the rate will be unchanged. It's a uniform flat rate per unit equivalent, and it's, let's say it was $313.28 per unit. Sorry, I read and correct that. It's $328.65 per unit equivalent.
Okay. Any further discussion? Counselor?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the sewer rates for 2015, 2016.
Do we have a moved and seconded? Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried. And I guess I skipped over 6.6 and 6.7. So we need a motion to approve the grants to organizations for 2015 and 16.
I so move the approval of the grant for organization for 2015-2016.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. And as mentioned, 6.7, we've already made a motion to approve the residential and commercial rates. Moving on to new business. We need someone to present the bursaries at the high school graduation on Monday, June 29th. One councillor has already expressed interest in that, so if there's no objections, that would be Councillor Cunningham. Any objections to that? Do we need a motion for that, Ken? I don't think. Just a consensus of no objections, so John? Thank you.
Question. Other previous years I've done it, I've been asked to give greetings on behalf of the municipality, and other years I haven't. Do we know if this is one of the years that I have or have not to? Yes. I'll do it anyway. I'll prepare anyway. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. 7.2, discussion on deadline for grants for 2016. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had briefly discussed this with staff in regards to discussing of when we have the deadline for the grants applications. I find that what I have over the years as a councillor since 2008 is a lot of organizations seem to want to know when the grants are going to be discussed in council, and I realize that we cannot release it to them, but however, I think it's time that we think about possibly moving the date from April back to March rather than carrying it on so late in the year. And another reason behind that is also we're discussing budget deliberations and capital investment plans and all that other thing. I think that maybe we should be moving that forward rather than, I'm not saying that I felt rushed this year during grants, but I would have liked to taken a little bit more time. to sit down and really analyze every application that came through. I feel like maybe there's something that we possibly may have missed, and maybe we'd have a time if the applications were in a month earlier, that we'd have a chance to sit down and discuss amongst each other the grants, but also take a week and think about it. And that's why the reasons why I want to possibly move that date back is just to think, make a good judgment call on some of these, because I do feel personally a little bit rushed in the grants, and I'm just wondering if council would possibly consider changing our policy on grants, that we move the date back from, I believe it's April the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, back to possibly March the 15th. I'm just trying to get council's thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess to Councillor Cunningham's concern, I guess before I would want to make a decision on it, I'd like to know how many applications come in those last 15 days of April as compared to how many come in March. And if we did decide to move it, I'd like to see it moved only till the deadline would be the end of March instead of going back to the 15th of March, because we as councillors have been here lots of times, and we'll get a program or something that'll come before us that we only got a week to apply for, because that's when the deadlines are closing. Well, there's a lot of people or a lot of organizations through the months of January and February who might think of doing something, won't have meetings and so on, but by the time they get a meeting and say, let's apply for this grant or do this, our deadline is come and gone and they're out of the loop. So if council did, I would kind of think maybe the end of March and so on. But I'd like to find out how many would come in, how many are coming in the last 15 days of April before the deadline. If the majority of them are coming in at that time, I don't know if I'd want to step back a whole month. But if you're only getting 2 or 3 coming in those last 15 days, then yeah, you could go back probably to the 15th. But that's just my opinion, Mr. Chair and Council.
Yeah, I certainly, Councillor Anthony's, I think comments are wise. I would just add to that perhaps it may be a good idea for staff to go back and maybe create a short survey, especially those folks. It's not a huge list of people that ask for grants, is to when the best time is for them. And then once we have that information, we could weigh that, against, our operations and our needs. I guess a caution would be, in my mind, at least initially, and maybe nothing, that most of the fiscal year ends are March 31st, and new budgets don't come forward until that date. So, people, especially volunteers, Councillor Anthony made a good point there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for them to get those pieces together, to put a submission into us for the ask for the grant. So anyway, I think it would be good if staff surveyed the folks that ask us for grants sort of year over year and get their opinions on, what type of impact changing the date in any manner would have on them, and then we could have maybe a fuller conversation at that point. So those would be my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying to find out, I do know the town does it a lot earlier than us, and I was just possibly trying to think that maybe we could move forward in seeing when the town, and I was hoping the internet worked a little bit faster, but some days it never works fast enough for you to look. But I do know the town of Yarmouth does it quite early, and they do it differently than us. So I'm just wondering if it's possible that maybe we could possibly direct staff to see when the deadline for the town of Yarmouth is, and bring that forward. It wouldn't take very much time to do that, and maybe give a report back to us on our next regular council, or at least our next committee of the whole meeting, and then we could discuss that a little bit then. Maybe that's the forum that maybe we should be discussing this. But if we're going to change the date, we've got to do it very quickly, so the grants are going out to the organizations and they know that we're changing them. And it's not something that we need to do this minute either. It's just something that I wanted to bring up for discussion. So thank you, council, for entertaining that.
Thank you, Warden. I think it's good that we're thinking about how best to deliver these grants to our constituents, and I know I can speak for all of us at how challenging and rewarding that time is to see all the good work that's being done around the municipality. And I know we've had requests to back up that date by some. I guess I would rather see, we do get, over 100 different applications. It would be quite a task to get everybody's feedback on those dates, and I would rather see that money spent on having sort of a capacity building or an education session for some of these grassroots organizations. We talk often, and I know Councillor John Cunningham is a big proponent, and I agree, that we want to be supporting more capital and less operating costs with some of these organizations. And I think if we were to help these agencies, maybe gain knowledge on business planning and budgeting and some of those sort of skills that aren't always present in the nonprofit sector, it might go a long way to allow those organizations to do more with less, or do more with what they have. So that's something that it's been on my mind, and I'd like to see that we go ahead and try and make that happen for next time around. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My internet finally did come up. The Town of Yarmouth applications for next year's grant applications closes on December the 20th. December the 20th.
December 20th.
We're gonna.
Either they're a year ahead or a year behind. That's early, isn't it?
That is very early, and I thought it was early, but I do know that they consider, this is for the applications, mind you. This is not the decision. And this was only changed. What's the story? This was only changed on in November 2013. That's when they do it, and that's the reason why I said maybe we should be a little bit more in line with town. And I do understand your concerns about that there may be a last-minute grant application or something that may consider. I do believe that's a little bit early. I didn't think it was that early, but that's what it is.
I think when you set a deadline, people react to that deadline as best they can. I mean, you basically set the framework up, and I mean, ours is April 15th, it's a long while after December the 20th, so.
Well, I think the town, maybe their deadline is the 20th of December, but don't they decide a lot earlier in the winter on who they're going to give their grants to and that type of thing?
Mr. Chair, again, this is an interesting topic, but I mean, I think what maybe staff, based on their interpretation of what's gone on here tonight in terms of discussion, might want to, fill in some of those blanks. We've got a process in place that I don't know if it's broken or not. I tend to say no, it's not, but I haven't heard a lot of complaints around the process. But again, we can always improve incrementally. So it's not really part of the budget, not really part of the agenda tonight. So maybe I'd suggest that we move on to the next agenda item in the interest of,
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
keeping on
This
the.
isn't on the agenda. Then.
You bring a valid point, Councillor, that maybe we want to look at it. I'm just not sure of the process, Councillor. Oh,
I just didn't know where on the agenda it was.
It's item 6.6, or sorry, 7.3.
Just for the record, I mean, I don't want to get into a big argument, but that's approval of grants to organizations for 2015-16, and that's for this fiscal.
It's on the agenda, 7.2, discussion on the line for grant from 2016.
I wasn't aware that we were on that.
Okay. Counselor, since you brought it up, would you like to proceed, or do you want a consensus from council? Do you want us to look at this in the near future?
I believe we already look into this
Okay.
and see if how many late ones come in, like a week late, or not late, a week before the deadline or something like that. And we do have consensus. We can discuss this on the next committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, council fine with that? Gerard, I saw you. Go ahead, your light's on.
I just wanted a comment on that. Like, the 20th of December, that seems kind of early, since we have some organizations that just have something to do like in the summer, and they haven't even decided of what they're going to get or what they would like to have at that time. So as far as we can go, the end of March or 15th of April, I'd like to stay around there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. You have email from Tri-County Regional School Board, pardon? Yes, and I'll read it out for the public. The Tri-County Regional School Board devised a long-range draft Outlook document as attached and are requesting feedback from the public on the document. Feedback can be submitted as follows, and there's an email address there, and also by mail. Instead of me reading that over the air, either the deadline for that is June 19th, 2015. If you either contact our office for that email address or the postal address, or I would assume on the Tri-County Regional School Board website, those contact information would be there. So that was just for information purposes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I started reading down through the document, and I didn't go too far, but went into a few of the schools. It was like Arcadia, Carleton, and so on. And what struck me, I mean, it's a very good document. It gives the age, the classroom size, you know, how many classrooms, et cetera, whether it's a 1 or 2 story building, et cetera. It's a very good document. But the thing that really stuck out to me was, man, the enrollment in the Tri-County School Board. The enrollment right across is on the way down. And they even give you the long-range forecast up to 2024. We got to have some real cold winters in order to bring the population back up. I'd say it's a sad thing. I mean, when I went to school, I went to Arcadia, and we went from grade primary to grade 9, and we filled that school. Marie, well, you were there. That school was full, and when I look now for 2014, they had 170 students. When I went there, or well, when we went there, 700. There was a lot of us, and now we're in an aging population and no kids being produced. The wrong terminology that I'm using, but it's Carleton, up your way, John. I noticed 85 students. That school is basically about the same size as Arcadia, a little different configuration, but size-wise, when they were built at the same time. 85 students, and there used to be a lot more there, because I remember them on our field days and so on. We used to have joint field days for recreation and so on, and there'd be a couple hundred kids come from Carleton, you know, and there's only 85, and they only go up to what, grade 6 now, and they used to go to grade 9. Boy, the school board has quite a task in front of them, eh? Costs keep going up and student enrollment keeps going down. When I get through, maybe I'll have some comments to send in off, Mr. Chair, but I just wanted to bring up, that was an outstanding thing that struck me. Anyway.
Thank you, Counselor. Let's just hope that their 10-year long-range forecast is wrong, and maybe by then people will be moving back and bringing their families with them. Wait and see, but it is drastic right now. 7.4, recommendations from PAC. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we had a meeting last week, and there's a couple motions that's to come forward here to council. So the first one is I move that council accept the recommendation from PAC to rezone the property at PID number 901-66448 from rural development to rural industrial and proceed to a public hearing on June the 24th.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion, gentlemen? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. 7.4.2.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, sorry, yours on the same way. There also was a second motion that came from that council meeting, and this is regards to a housekeeping oversight on the land use bylaw maps. So I move that council accept the recommendation from PAC that the council amend the land use bylaw rezoning for property number PID number 901-59377 from residential general to commercial restricted to correct and oversight to apply the accurate zoning information in the land use bylaw and proceed to a public hearing on that as well on June the 24th.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Churchill. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Motion carried. You have, I don't see recommended, you have your reports, and if there's no questions, I will move on to recommendations from in camera. Okay. Councillor?
So I move that the municipality district of Yarmouth participate in the Canada Legacy 2017 project as circulated.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that?
Second.
Second moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Question.
Question being called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. I think we have one more in-camera item, do we? Appointments of a rep. Yep. You moving that, Councillor?
I'll move that as well, yeah. I'll move that that Warden Murray Goodwin and Gerard LeBlanc participate as council representatives for the Canada Legacy 2017 project, with Councillor LeBlanc being the alternate.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor, you got your light on. Did you want to speak to that too?
Speak to
Yes.
that. At this time, Mr. Chair, I would, where this is a televised and we've spoken about the legacy, would it be appropriate for you to give, so the general public will understand what the legacy is going to be and what it's for?
Yeah, good point. 2017 is the 150th celebration of the birth of Canada, and this legacy project is from Kings County to Yarmouth County. Is that we don't promote this area enough. That actually long before there was a Quebec, well, not long before, but before Quebec existed, before Upper Canada existed, before Canada existed, we had been there almost 200 years. I think we have a great history. I think this whole southwest area has a great history, and we do not promote it. We do not promote the Cape where Samuel Champlain landed. We do not promote like we should Port Royal, the Habitant, the Grand Pré, all those things. I think a lot of Canada doesn't really realize that Canada started here. North America started in New England and here. And the Legacy Project is that we will get together as the communities from Grand Pré to Yarmouth and start planning and applying for, there's I think Did I hear $1 billion? The federal government is put forth for applications for the celebrations of the 150th anniversary, and we want to be part of that, and we want to promote this area. So that it's 2 years off. 2 years is not a long time. Before that, this council may change, some of it may change, but the program itself will go on regardless. I think it's a nice project, and that's the purpose. So we want to be part of it. Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Seeing no further business, meeting adjourned.